I live in LA, in the suburbs. It's a nice neighborhood, mostly Iranian, Jewish, fairly wealthy, but still it's not unusual to hear the ghetto bird late at night. Only this night, the airship was right over our house and the spotlight kept shining back and forth. I had my wife and toddler son asleep in the room with me. Neither of them woke up. I thought it might be best to pull the shotgun out of the safe and get her loaded up just to be sure. I grabbed my Remington pump and loaded it with double-aught buck and a slug. I went out to the living room, locking the bedroom door behind me. We have a house lock on the bedroom door. I turned out all the interior lights and turned on all the exterior lights in the yard, and I just stood there, shirtless in my pajama bottoms with a shotgun, occasionally walking up to the windows on either side of the house. The helo just kept circling and the spotlight kept darting back and forth. I sat down in a chair and within a minute started to doze off when I saw a figure run by my sliding glass door from my backyard towards my side yard. I ran through my kitchen and realized my side door to my garage was open. I unlocked the door to the garage and went in to try and lock the door to the side yard. He was already at the door, turning the knob and pushing. The knob is tricky even when it's unlocked. The door itself is swollen from rain exposure and old framing, and it's difficult to open. I racked the shotgun, pointed it at the door window and yelled, "Stop!" I reached forward for the tactical flashlight that was mounted on the shotgun. Of course, the batteries were dead. I recoiled back towards the water heater. I figured if he came through that door, I'd have to shoot him. There would be no choice. If I didn't, and he overpowered me, the door behind me was unlocked and he'd have access to the house and a shotgun. We all think we're gonna be heroic and steadfast and resilient in that moment. And I probably would have stood my ground because I had my wife and son to protect. But the last thing I wanted right then was to pull the trigger and hear the blast and have a man die violently in my house. What would my life be like? How would it change? Would I have to get lawyers, lose my house, worry about retribution, have to look over my shoulder? I sometimes lay awake at night thinking of a blunder I said in a conversation or a mistake I made driving. Would I relive the moment I killed a guy over and over again while I was trying to sleep? The problem solved itself. The guy stood there, hand on the door but looking behind him as the cops rushed up to the side gate. Flashlights, lots of yelling, 10 different commands all being screamed at the same time. They reached over, got the gate unlocked, and the guy was on the ground. I put my shotgun down on the other side of the door. A female officer shined her light through the side door window and yelled, "I saw get inside." I went back into the kitchen, locked the door behind me. I cracked a beer and took a long plug off a bottle of tequila. They arrested the guy and the helo called off, and after an hour or so they were all gone. And it was quiet except for a few neighbors all kibitzing in Hebrew and Farsi outside. I went outside and locked the gate and went back to bed, dry mouth and heart racing. My wife woke up, finally, asked why I hadn't been sleeping. I'm fine, just insomnia. I didn't want to tell her, not at 3 a.m. She'd freak out, and at that moment, that was the last thing I wanted. I called the next day to see if I could get any details. The watch commander told me that the guy was a 16-year-old kid from the neighborhood. Later, I found out he ran around with my neighbor's kids. No previous record, wealthy parents. But got caught breaking into his friend's house, took the cops on a chase, ditched his car a block away, and ran like hell. My yard was probably the darkest and most shaded, so he hid there. I never mentioned the shotgun or almost killing him. The less they knew, the better, far as I was concerned. Me and my oldest sibling staying at home. Small town in Ohio, with less people in it than my mum's graduating class of the city we came from. Sibling is grounded. Both the house's phone and their own phone are locked in my dad's gun safe, which neither of us had the combination to. Reason for being grounded is something silly and arbitrary. I can't remember quite why. Grandparents live down the street. Great-grandmother lives in a small house. They built her on the property so that she could be independent, but they would still be close by. My parents said that they were going to go check on my great-grandmother, as my grandparents were out of town that day, and then they would come back and we would order pizza. That sounded good enough to 7-year-old me and 14 over 15-year-old sibling. We played video games for a while, starting to get hungry and wonder when my parents would be back. After about 2 hours of them being gone, I heard a knock on the door. I went downstairs, pretty excited for the food, and my sibling followed a bit behind after saving the game. Walked up to the door, which had a large window in it, and not my parents. Very tall, lean, white guy with some short black hair and scruffy facial hair, 24 over 25 years old. More jarring, because everyone knew everyone in this small town, and I had no clue who this was. I held up my finger like 1 second and closed the curtain. I turned to see my sibling staring at the door in a bit of disbelief because they had seen the person too. In seconds, knocking turned to pounding, turned to shaking and rattling our doorknob. Terrified and with no way to call our parents, my sibling grabbed my hand and ran me into the kitchen. They grabbed a knife, and I distinctly remember it breaking in their hand and them grabbing a different one. We hid in the laundry room and held each other, hearing banging, pounding, and about 5 minutes that felt like hours later, the front door opening. One thing about my sibling is they have always been ready to protect me at a moment's notice, and they were ready to jump up with their shitty kitchen knife and defend me the moment the dude was upon us. Instead, my mum rounded the corner holding 2 pizza boxes and wondering why her 2 kids were in a crumpled heap of tears on the floor. We both stood up and ran to tell her about the man outside, but we were met with laughter. My dad was outside talking to him. She said that he was asking about buying a broken down car that had been in our driveway for a few months and was apparently a mechanic. My mum felt terrible, but found the situation a bit amusing. Apparently, she went out and told the man, and he said he felt bad for scaring us. We were given hugs and promised that the phones wouldn't be locked away while they were gone again, and spent the evening eating our pizza with choked sobs. But something still bothers me, even though it didn't as a child. Something that I just never thought about. I was 14. It was an average night around 9 p.m. Me and my little cousin are at his house. I'm babysitting for the night, while my mom and aunt are shopping, and my dad and uncle are at the movie theater. So we're sitting there, and I was feeling really strange. Something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So I just kept watching TV with my cousin. The feeling wasn't going away, so I got up and walked to the back door to lock it. When I came back through the kitchen, I saw what was causing my weird feeling. In the window, there was a very decrepit and homeless-looking man, just staring into the window, looking at my cousin. Protective mode turned on. I pretended like I didn't see the guy, and I told my little cousin that we needed to go upstairs because our parents would be home soon and they wouldn't want him to be staying up late. So I went upstairs and put him to bed, knowing damn well that there was a man outside that wanted in. I was about 125 pounds and 5'8" at the time, and I played football for my school. If I remember correctly, I went downstairs and straight into the kitchen and grabbed one of those meat tenderizing hammers, turned back to the window where I saw him before. Not there. Ran back to the front door and checked that it was locked. Both the deadbolt and the knob were locked. Ran back upstairs with my meat tenderizer and went into my cousin's room and sat down in front of the door. He asked me what I was doing, and I said that he didn't need to worry about it and that he should keep his head low. Call the cops, and then my dad and uncle. Cops would take half an hour, and my dad and uncle were 45 minutes away. Then I hear a window shatter and the sound of heavy boots walking around on the main floor. I told my cousin to say calm, hide under the covers, and to keep silent. I could hear the guy walking around downstairs. It was horrifying. I gripped that damn meat tenderizer and waited. About 5 minutes pass, and then I hear the boots walking upstairs. At this point, I was having a freaking heart attack. My cousin's door is no more than 10 feet from the stairs. I heard him opening the doors to my aunt and uncle's room, then the bathroom. He walked back downstairs, and I heard him open the door to the basement. 15 minutes later, the police showed up and burst into the house. Turned out the guy was loose from a mental hospital 1 province away. I was woken up in the middle of the night by my house doorbell. It was one of those apartment doorbells that were crazily loud, the kind that you could hear the upstairs apartments when it rang. This ring made me nearly fall out of bed. It was that loud, and it only stops ringing if you go up to it and end the call. So I stumble across my room in the dark in my tired state to see that it's 2 a.m. I think it's odd, but I check the camera feed and see there's nothing there, so just go back to bed and end up falling back to sleep. 20 minutes later, the bell rings again. This time, it seems louder than before. So, again, run across the room to answer the call to stop the ringing throughout the floor. And again. There's nothing outside, apart from something rustling around outside. The doorbell sometimes goes off on its own, but never more than once. At this point, my heartbeat is getting higher than I would like to admit. End the call and get a drink. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rings again. Go to answer the call, and none of the buttons are working. I'm freaking out at this point and frantically pushing buttons to stop the noise waking my neighbors. And then the camera feed suddenly turns on, and there's just a face staring into the camera. I proceed to nearly shit myself. The sound then turns on, and all I can hear is this person panting. Doesn't say anything at all. This went on for about a minute, and then I hear the building door unlock and the camera feed go back. 10 minutes pass by, and I'm starting to calm down after realizing the person probably just pressed the wrong apartment number on the building. And then the knocking on my door starts, and some mumbling that I can't make out. I silently walk closer to the door to try to better hear what they're saying. Then they start banging harder. They weren't letting up at all. I grab a knife from the kitchen when I hear them shout, "Wai mai," which means food delivery in Chinese. I nearly shit myself for a food delivery. I open the door half-heartedly to see a fairly oldish food delivery driver stood in the hallway with a bag of food. He looks really confused to why I look so tired, angry, and he got even more confused when I told him I didn't order anything. He looks down at the receipt and sees that he's got the wrong apartment number, and it's actually my next door neighbor. He then looks up, looks at me, and then walks off like it was nothing, without saying a word, no apology or anything. When he got to the neighbor's door, he saw that I was still stood there looking shocked, and he just said, "No problem." So I responded with "what the fuck," and with a few phrases in Chinese, mainly about him waking me up at 2 a.m. and his attitude. Once he dropped the food off and confirmed the delivery on his app, he came over and apologized, as he was probably going to get in trouble for being so late for the delivery, which I do feel sorry for him for. I used to babysit my younger siblings. I was a sophomore in high school, and my parents went out. We lived out in the middle of nowhere, so at night no one comes up to our road. We lived on a turnaround, and we were the only house on the road. Well, the dogs started barking outside. Okay, no big deal. They usually bark at cows, coyotes, whatever. But we saw headlights coming up. Okay, it's mum and dad. No, that's not their car. It comes up to the house and sits in the driveway for a few minutes. I'm kind of freaking out. Then it leaves. 10 minutes later, it comes back, gets up in the yard and sits there. I tell my brother and sister to come into my parents' room and hide in my dad's closet. I get his shotgun out, grab a few shells, do a safety check, everything my dad taught me. Put the shells in my pocket. I don't load it, just in case, and I walk out. My dog is freaking the hell out at this truck. He's growling, barking, all that. I stand on the porch with this heavy-ass shotgun in my hand and call him. This truck is still facing me with its headlights on. My dog comes to my side and I cock the gun, aim. They fucking speed off. I'm shaking, scared. I tell myself, remember red Toyota Tacoma, rear bumper missing. Red Tacoma, rear bumper missing. I get inside, put the shotgun propped up by the door, and tell my brother and sister it's all clear. I was freaked the hell out. I started crying. That year, 2 people were stabbed in their house 2 miles down the road. They were home sleeping when someone broke in. They both survived. Plus a house 10 miles down the road was robbed. This happened a few months apart. My parents didn't learn about it until my mum told someone she knew about what happened at our house. Fucking scared all of us. But luckily my dad taught us kids proper gun safety and how to shoot. I guess for times like these, we always just thought it was something fun to do. We lived in the South, so it was common to have a gun and to go out and shoot, ski whenever. But damn, if I hadn't known how to intimate someone with it, it'd K if we'd have been okay. Plus, thanks to my dog for probably scaring them too much to get out of their truck. No one wants to try a big-ass German Shepherd.